Forget everything you learned in history class, because if alternative researchers like Randall Carlson have their way, the conventional wisdom has absolutely nothing to do with the historical truth. The ancient Egyptians didn't use primitive copper tools, ramps, and ropes to build their gigantic pyramids. They used a mystical form of energy that we can't even dream of today. However, a number of experts have finally uncovered this ancient high-tech wonder. But the powerful people behind it are doing everything they can to conceal the discovery of this ancient knowledge. Men like Randall Carlson look at the past differently to mainstream researchers. Although the question of the exact construction technique remains unanswered to this day, the majority of conventional experts are certain that the Egyptian pyramids were built using a combination of simple tools and pure muscle power. The fact that the monumental buildings have always taken our breath away cannot be denied. The Great Pyramid of Giza is made up of around 2.65 million stone blocks. On average, each of these blocks weighs 2.5 tons. In reality, however, 7-ton colossi have to be lifted into the air and fitted precisely. The bottom line is that the Great Pyramid, or Cheops Pyramid, is not only characterized by its overwhelming impressiveness, but also by its no less impressive precision. You just have to imagine it. Thousands of years ago, the inhabitants of antiquity succeeded in creating a 146-meter-high giant that is precisely aligned with the 4 points of the compass. But that's not all. If you measure the 4 sides of the building, each 230 meters long, you will find a deviation of not even a thousandth. Furthermore, the blocks of the Great Pyramid were once so perfectly aligned that not even a sheet of paper would have fitted between them. There is no question that all these dimensions and details are extremely impressive. But in the same breath, they also seem at least as puzzling. How did the ancient Egyptians manage to create such an architectural masterpiece in the first place? Was the Great Pyramid really just a colossal tomb for the pharaoh Cheops? Conservative researchers generally explain the missing artifacts, grave goods, and mummies with the deeds of grave robbers. At the same time, they point to a series of graffiti by construction workers that clearly identify the monument as the final resting place of Khufu. We have already made it clear that Randall Carlson has his problems with the official historiography. However, the starting point of his convictions goes back much further than the era of the ancient Egyptians. Just like Graham Hancock, Carlson also believes that an advanced civilization existed long before our time. However, this mysterious people was destroyed at the end of the last ice age as part of a devastating global flood catastrophe, and thus also erased from our collective historical memory. Only a few managed to escape the raging waters at that time, and yet the survivors subsequently went out into the rest of the world to reveal a higher knowledge to the simpler peoples and bring them the gift of civilization. What happened to advanced civilization and its futuristic technologies? When Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock were guests on Joe Rogan's famous podcast, they once again gave a deep insight into their worldviews. Listeners to the Joe Rogan Experience learned that the ancient Egyptians are said to have possessed an incredible, almost magical technology that makes any notion of gigantic work crews and bulky ramp systems a thing of the past. In detail, this ancient miracle technology was based on the skills and knowledge of the lost precursor civilization. But at this point, one could become suspicious. Assuming that this much-cited group really did exist, where is the archaeological evidence? Why have no high-tech machines, ruined buildings, or even banal everyday objects from the ominous civilization been discovered so far? Well, to this, Carlson and Hancock reply that only those who have simply not grasped the extent of the brutal flood disaster can ask such a question. According to them, the cataclysm was tantamount to a complete upheaval of the planet's surface. Carlson compares the brutal transformation of the world at that time to a city being hit by a nuclear bomb. And a little later, another nuclear device falls on the settlement. What will we still be able to discover there 10 to 20,000 years later? What should we even look for? In detail, the archaeological traces have long since been reintegrated into the geological layers, and it will be all the more difficult to track them down if you are not actively looking for them. Well, at least officially, because in truth, many serious researchers are said to be striving to bring the lost historical reality back to light. Unfortunately, however, this desire would be suppressed by the rest of the scientific community, so that the relevant work would rather be carried out behind closed doors. According to Carlson himself, however, he has had the privilege of speaking to the members of this hidden group of experts several times, and even if he doesn't want to give away all the details for the sake of secrecy, Carlson talks about a laboratory in the Maldives that is currently the scene of an extraordinary series of research projects. Building on the knowledge of the millennia past, the technologies being tested here are said to be based more on implosions than explosions. A certain Nikola Tesla is also said to have been significantly influenced by this principle, which is why it is only logical that the ideas of the misunderstood genius also play a major role in the current prototypes. And that is precisely the point. We are dealing with a technology that is completely different from our own, a fact that we are also confronted with when we take a closer look at the ancient Egyptian traditions. According to contemporary sources, the high priest always sang when the pyramid blocks, weighing tons, were heaved into the air. According to Hancock and Carlson, this could not have been a kind of religious background music. Instead, the Egyptians would have used the properties of sound and sound waves to manipulate the material and move the massive loads. This was the secret of the ancient Egyptians. If we look at the technological development of the past centuries, we can only describe it as rapid. Regardless of whether we look back 300, 200, or even just 100 years, the explosive development that mankind has achieved in this short period of time shows the outstanding potential of our species. And yet, we tend to smile wearily at the skills of our ancestors. And according to Randall Carlson, we are making a crucial mistake. According to him, the inhabitants of antiquity were by no means as limited as it is often attributed to them. On the contrary, they simply followed different technological paths than we do, and yet produced things that were at least on par with our modern inventions. However, a look into the past also shows that those scientists and inventors who chose these other paths really did not have any easy time of it. For although Nikola Tesla was intellectually generations ahead of his time and predicted many future developments with frightening accuracy, he was perceived by the public as more of a quirky madman than a visionary genius. One of the physicist's most famous and confusing quotes is as follows: "If you want to understand the mysteries of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." What seems both profound and puzzling to us was, however, a well-known and above all practical concept to the ancient Egyptians. According to Randall Carlson, the principle is actually quite simple. Just think of an electric shaver. When we switch it on and place it on the table, it starts to move, simply because it vibrates. But literally everything has a vibration of a certain frequency, and if you know the frequency, you can control everything. The inhabitants of the Pharaonic Empire brought this principle into reality and used it to transport, process, and pile up their stones, which weighed tons. To better illustrate the secret of this ancient knowledge inherited from the precursor civilization, Carlson uses a somewhat alternative diagram. This diagram lists in minute detail which elements have which frequencies and which vibrational frequencies are associated with them. The numbers of the corresponding model would come to our attention over and over again within ancient traditions and lore. So can this be mere coincidence? Put into pure practice, this concept would drastically reshape the technological face of the world and produce, for example, engines powered by so-called plasmoids. By definition, these would be donut-shaped collections of protons and electrons which, once captured and placed in orbit, are capable of absorbing, storing, and releasing enormous amounts of energy. These amounts of energy are in turn contained in the structured electromagnetic containment field that the plasmoids themselves generate. Ultimately, plasmoids function like atomic batteries that can recharge themselves thanks to their ability to convert matter into clean, available energy. What at first sounds like a crazy, intangible thought experiment has in fact long since become reality, according to Carlson. And he is by no means referring to the lost mystical inventions from ancient Egypt, but to the prototypes that are currently being worked on in the secret laboratory in the Maldives. What is certain, however, is that the perfected creations would not only completely transform our everyday lives, but also the market. As a result, the large corporations would also see their monopoly position in danger, and would therefore do everything in their power to block the alternative technology paths. To underline the fact that the arrival of a new, previously completely unknown technology is tantamount to a radical upheaval, Carlson refers to nuclear energy. Until the 1940s, the general public didn't even know that such a thing existed. But then nuclear power plants and nuclear weapons sprouted up like mushrooms at lightning speed. However, Graham Hancock does not believe that we will experience such a change again in the foreseeable future. In fact, Randall Carlson's brother in spirit has nothing good to say about the most powerful people in the world. Quote, "It's a powerful technology that should be used by adults, but this world is run by criminal children. The most powerful people, all the politicians out there, are just complete a-holes. There's not one of them that I have any respect for. And yet, they are the ones controlling this terrifying technology. We are simply not mature enough as a civilization to manage such technology." The Great Pyramid of Giza, also known as the Pyramid of Khufu or the Pyramid of Cheops, is a massive pyramid located in Giza, Egypt. It is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world and has fascinated researchers and scientists for centuries due to its impressive size, construction, and potential electromagnetic characteristics. An international research team has examined the electromagnetic response of the Great Pyramid to radio waves using theoretical physics methods. Scientists hypothesize that the pyramid can focus electromagnetic energy beneath its base and into its internal chambers under resonance circumstances. The findings will now be used by the researchers to replicate similar effects at the nanoscale. According to Polina Kapanova, PhD, a member of the Faculty of Physics and Technology at ITMO University, by selecting a material with appropriate electromagnetic properties, we are able to obtain pyramidal nanoparticles with promise for practical application in nanosensors and efficient solar cells. These theoretical results will be used by the research team to create nanoparticles that can replicate similar optical effects. Such nanoparticles could be employed, for instance, to create highly effective solar cells and sensors. While there are various theories and claims about the electromagnetic properties of the Great Pyramid of Giza, some of the most notable ones include 1. Geomagnetic anomalies. Geomagnetic anomalies refer to variations in the Earth's magnetic field strength or direction that deviate from the expected behavior based on the average or background magnetic field. These anomalies can occur in localized regions and can have different causes, such as variations in the Earth's geology, changes in the ionosphere, or anthropogenic factors. Localized electromagnetic fields, on the other hand, refer to electromagnetic fields that are concentrated in specific areas or regions. These fields can have various sources, including natural phenomena such as lightning, geomagnetic storms, or auroras, as well as artificial sources such as power lines, communication antennas, or electronic devices. Geomagnetic anomalies and localized electromagnetic fields are often related, as changes in the Earth's magnetic field can affect the behavior and distribution of electromagnetic fields in the surrounding area. Researchers have discovered that the Great Pyramid of Giza has an unusual concentration of limestone and granite, which are known to exhibit unique electromagnetic properties. Additionally, the pyramid is aligned almost exactly with the Earth's 4 cardinal points: north, south, east, and west. Some researchers believe that the pyramid's precise alignment and its unique construction materials could have resulted in geomagnetic anomalies, creating a localized electromagnetic field around the pyramid. 2. Resonance frequencies. Some researchers believe that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built to resonate at specific frequencies. For example, the pyramid's dimensions and geometry could create natural resonance frequencies, similar to how a musical instrument produces sound. These resonant frequencies could potentially have electromagnetic effects, including amplification, focusing, or manipulation of energy. This theory that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built to resonate at specific frequencies is based on the idea that the pyramid's dimensions and structure were intentionally designed to create specific acoustic or vibrational effects. This theory suggests that the ancient Egyptians who built the pyramid had a sophisticated understanding of acoustics and used it purposefully in the construction of the pyramid. One of the most well-known proponents of this theory is French architect and acoustics expert Jean-Pierre Houdin. He proposed that the idea that the pyramid was was designed as a massive resonator to focus and amplify sound waves, particularly within its internal chambers. According to Houdin, the dimensions of the pyramid, including its height, base length, and internal passageways, were carefully chosen to create specific resonant frequencies that could have been used for various purposes, such as religious ceremonies, healing practices, or communication over long distances. Other researchers have also suggested that the pyramid's internal chambers, passages, and external geometry were designed to produce specific frequencies or resonate with certain wavelengths. Some theories propose that the pyramid was built to harness and amplify Earth's natural electromagnetic or vibrational frequencies, while others suggest that it was designed to align with astronomical phenomena such as the position of the stars or planets through resonant frequencies. Are you ready for number 3? I'm sure you must have heard about it. 3. Energy conduction. Another theory suggests that the Great Pyramid of Giza could have been used as a conduit for energy. For example, it has been proposed that the pyramid's unique shape and materials could have allowed it to conduct or focus electromagnetic energy, possibly for practical purposes such as communication, healing, or power generation. The theory that the Great Pyramid was used as a conduit for energy suggests that it was constructed with advanced knowledge of energy or electromagnetic principles, and that it served as a power plant or energy generator. Proponents of this theory claim that the pyramid was designed to harness and manipulate energy, possibly for purposes such as healing, meditation, or even communication with extraterrestrial beings. 4. Pyramid as a cosmic antenna. This theory suggests that the Great Pyramid of Giza was designed to function as a cosmic antenna or a transmitter-receiver of electromagnetic energy. Proponents of this theory argue that the pyramid's unique geometry, including its height, angle of inclination, and construction materials, could have allowed it to harness and amplify cosmic energies such as electromagnetic radiation from space or even extraterrestrial communications. Number 5 will blow your mind. Are you ready? Here goes. 5. Healing properties. Some claims propose that the Great Pyramid of Giza has healing properties related to electromagnetic energy. It has been suggested that the pyramid's unique shape and alignment could create a beneficial energy field that promotes physical healing, balances chakras, or provides other health benefits. However, there is no credible scientific evidence to support the claim that the pyramid has healing properties related to electromagnetic energy or any other form of energy. Claims of healing properties or other mystical properties of the pyramid are often based on pseudoscientific or New Age beliefs and lack rigorous scientific evidence, empirical testing, and peer-reviewed research. 6. Astronomical alignment. Another theory suggests that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built with precise astronomical alignments, and these alignments could have had electromagnetic significance. For example, the pyramid's alignment with certain stars or constellations could have been intended to capture or harness specific electromagnetic energies associated with those celestial bodies. 7. Limestone vibration properties. The discovery of the high concentration of limestone and granite in the Great Pyramids of Giza has led researchers to speculate about its potential significance. One theory suggests that the pyramid's unique composition may have been intentionally chosen by the ancient Egyptians for specific purposes related to electromagnetic properties. For example, the piezoelectric and ferromagnetic properties of limestone and granite could have been utilized in some way during the construction of the pyramid or for ceremonial or religious purposes. The specific vibration properties of the limestone used in the Great Pyramid of Giza would depend on factors such as the type and quality of limestone used, the dimensions and arrangement of the limestone blocks, and the overall design and construction of the pyramid. Studies and investigations by experts in the field of Egyptology, archaeology, and structural engineering have been conducted to understand the vibration properties of the Great Pyramid of Giza, but definitive conclusions may vary. 8. Ley lines. Some theories suggest that the Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned with so-called ley lines, which are believed to be powerful lines of electromagnetic energy that crisscross the Earth. However, the concept of ley lines lacks scientific evidence and is considered a New Age or paranormal belief, rather than a scientifically recognized phenomenon. 9. Electromagnetic energy beams. There are claims that the Great Pyramid of Giza emits or focuses electromagnetic energy beams or rays, which are believed to have various effects, such as providing energy, preserving mummies, or even powering alien spacecraft. However, there is no credible scientific evidence to support these claims, and they are often associated with fringe or conspiracy theories. 10. Chamber shafts. The Great Pyramid of Giza contains narrow shafts that connect the king's chambers and the queen's chamber to the outside of the pyramid. These shafts have unique electromagnetic properties, and some researchers believe that they were designed for specific electromagnetic purposes, such as communication or energy transmission. These shafts have been a subject of great interest and speculation due to their unique characteristics. Some researchers and enthusiasts have proposed that these shafts have electromagnetic properties, although there is no scientific consensus on this claim. The shafts in the Great Pyramid of Giza are narrow, measuring only about 8 inches, 20 centimeters in width, and they extend from the chambers inside the pyramid to the outside. The purpose of these shafts is still a matter of debate among scholars, with various theories proposed over the years. Some believe that they may be served as air shafts for ventilation or for symbolic and religious purposes, while others suggest that they could have been used for astronomical observations or as passages for the pharaoh's spirit to travel to the afterlife. 11. Solar conductivity. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned with the sun's rays during the equinoxes, creating interesting solar conductivity effects. Some researchers believe that the pyramid could have been used as a giant solar collector, harnessing solar energy for various purposes. This hypothesis proposes that the pyramids were designed to align with specific celestial events, such as solstices and equinoxes, which could have been used to mark the agricultural calendar or as a means of tracking time. These alignments could also have been used to capture and utilize solar energy during specific times of the year when the angle of the sun's rays was most favorable for energy collection. Before moving forward, please remember to like and subscribe to our channel. 12. Subterranean chamber. The Great Pyramid of Giza contains a subterranean chamber, which is located beneath the pyramid's base. This chamber has walls made of polished granite, which has unique electromagnetic properties. Some researchers believe that this chamber was used for generating or storing electromagnetic energy. This chamber is located beneath the pyramid and is accessed through a descending corridor. It is a small room with a flat roof and has an unfinished appearance, with rough-hewn walls and an incomplete ceiling. The idea that the subterranean chamber was used for generating or storing electromagnetic energy is based on various conjectures, such as the pyramid's unique geometry and alignment with the Earth's magnetic field, as well as the use of certain materials in its construction. Some researchers have proposed that the pyramid was designed as a kind of power plant, with the subterranean chamber serving as a generator or storage facility for electromagnetic energy, which could have been used for various purposes such as healing, communication, or even powering advanced technologies. 13. Electromagnetic shielding. Studies have shown that the limestone blocks used in the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza have unique electromagnetic properties, including high electrical resistivity and low magnetic susceptibility. This could have resulted in the pyramid acting as a natural electromagnetic shield, protecting its interior from external electromagnetic interference. While there are many mysteries surrounding the construction of the pyramids at Giza, including the transportation and positioning of the massive limestone blocks, claims about unique electromagnetic properties of the limestone blocks should be approached with caution and subjected to further scientific investigation and peer review. It's important to note that many ancient structures, including the pyramids of Egypt, were built using locally available materials, which in the case of the Great Pyramid of Giza would have been limestone quarried from nearby sources. Limestone is a sedimentary rock that is composed mostly of calcium carbonate, and its properties can vary depending on the specific type of limestone, its composition, and the environmental conditions in which it formed. As such, it is possible that the limestone used in the Great Pyramid of Giza may have had unique characteristics due to its local geological context, rather than intentional engineering or electromagnetic properties. 14. Casing stones. The Great Pyramid of Giza was originally covered with polished limestone casing stones, which had unique electromagnetic properties. These casing stones were highly reflective and could have potentially acted as a reflector or amplifier of electromagnetic energy. The pyramid was originally covered in white limestone casing stones that would have given it a smooth and polished appearance. However, over the centuries, these casing stones have largely been removed or eroded, leaving the rough limestone core structure visible today. The theory suggests that the pyramids were aligned in such a way that they could capture and focus solar energy using reflective surfaces. The polished limestone casing stones that once covered the pyramids could have acted as mirrors, reflecting and concentrating sunlight onto specific areas of the pyramid. This could have been used for for various purposes, such as heating water, generating steam, or even producing electricity through a form of ancient solar power technology. 15. Granite plugs. The Great Pyramid of Giza has granite plugs in some of its passages, which are believed to have piezoelectric properties. These plugs could have potentially been used for generating electrical charges or amplifying electromagnetic energy. Piezoelectric is the property of certain materials to generate an electric charge when subjected to mechanical stress or pressure, and vice versa. The exact purpose or function of these granite plugs in the passages of the Great Pyramid of Giza is still a topic of speculation and debate among researchers and Egyptologists. Some theories propose that these plugs were intentionally placed to serve as a form of energy conduit or to generate and harness electricity through piezoelectricity. Nature of the Sphinx. The Great Sphinx of Giza is a giant limestone statue of a reclining sphinx. The Sphinx is a mythical creature with the head of a human and the body of a lion. In this case, the human head of the Great Sphinx of Giza is modeled after the face of Pharaoh Khafre. Standing on the Giza Plateau on the west bank of the Nile in Giza, Egypt, the Sphinx faces directly from west to east. The Sphinx was not assembled with blocks of limestone. Instead, it was chiseled out of a huge bedrock that already existed long before even Pharaoh Khafre was ever born. Just how grand is the Sphinx? Well, at 66 feet, it is almost taller than the White House. With a length of 240 feet and a width of 62 feet, it makes sense that the paws of the resting lion are bigger than city buses. Simply put, the Great Sphinx would dwarf anyone who stood beside it. The Sphinx once drowned in sand. In Egypt, the first intermediate period, also known as the Dark Period of ancient Egypt history, lasted for about 125 years, between 2181 and 2055 BC. Shortly after this period, the Giza necropolis was abandoned, including the Sphinx and all the structures around it. Consequently, drifting sand gradually buried the Sphinx up to its shoulders. The young Thutmose IV, who would later become a pharaoh, took it upon himself to see that the Sphinx was excavated. He gathered a team that dug out the front paws of the Sphinx and then erected a shrine that housed the dream stele between its paws. The dream stele, also known as the Sphinx stele, is a massive granite slab containing an epigraph that claims the divine legitimization of Pharaoh Thutmose's rule. It also regards Pharaoh Khafre as the one who ordered the building of the Sphinx. How famous is the Sphinx? Out of the 7 wonders of the Old Egypt Kingdom, only the Sphinx and the Pyramids of Giza are still standing, and this tells you just how famous it is today. It remains the oldest known monumental sculpture in Egypt, along with being one of the most recognizable statues in the world. Every year, tourists trek to Egypt to gaze upon the face of this incredible structure. Some are world leaders, from Cleopatra to Napoleon Bonaparte to Barack Obama. Vandalism. Just as the Sphinx has attracted many world leaders over the centuries, it has also attracted many looters and treasure hunters looking to make a quick buck. These violations, in addition to the natural degradation caused by weather, have resulted in the Sphinx losing some important parts. For example, the Sphinx is missing its nose. The part where the nose should have been shows signs that rods or chisels were hammered into it to pry it off. This likely happened between the 3rd and 10th centuries AD. Similarly, the Sphinx appears to be missing a ceremonial pharaonic beard that might have been added later. This makes sense because the missing beard would have damaged the entire chin when it fell off had it been there from the beginning. Different colors. What was the original color of the Sphinx? Around the ear and some other parts of the Sphinx's face, there are red paint residues that suggest that it might have been previously painted red. Given that the Sphinx was attributed to the sun god, the red paint might have alluded to that fact. Elsewhere on the Sphinx, there are residues of yellow and blue pigment, leading Lenner to suggest that it was once decked out in the gaudy comic book colors. However, like many ancient monuments, whatever pigments or colors were used on it in the past have since weathered away, resulting in the yellow or beige appearance it has today. There are no records of the Sphinx. The word Sphinx is actually a human-headed lion in Greek mythology, and it only became associated with the Great Sphinx some 2,000 years later after it was carved. In reality, nobody knows the true name of the Sphinx, although there have been attempts to trace its name. There are thousands of tombs in Giza with hieroglyphic inscriptions dating back about 4,500 years, and none mentions the Sphinx or references it in any way. James Allen, an Egyptologist at Brown University, believes it is because the Egyptians didn't write much history, so it is impossible to know what the builders of the Sphinx thought about it. Name and symbolism of the Sphinx. Despite the lack of concrete history on what the Egyptians who built the Sphinx thought about it, many Egyptologists and archaeologists have tried to name it and determine its likely symbol for Egyptians then and now. Inscriptions from the era when it was built refer to Ruti, a double lion god that sat at the entrance to the underworld, guarding the horizon as the sun rose and set. The new kingdom of Egypt would later refer to the Sphinx as the solar deity Hor-Emmakhet, also known as Horus of the Horizon. The pharaoh Thutmose IV expressly referred to it with this name in his dream still. Modern Egyptian Arabic refers to the Sphinx as Abu Awal, which translates to the terrifying one, or literally father of dread. Who ordered the Sphinx to be built? Scholars, archaeologists, and Egyptologists have long pondered the question of which ruler built the Great Sphinx of Giza. However, most of them agree that it was Pharaoh Khafre, who ruled Egypt during the Old Kingdom, beginning from around 2600 BC and lasting for about 500 years before falling to civil war and famine. The idea that Khafre built the Sphinx dates back to 1853, when French archaeologist Auguste Mariette unearthed a life-size statue of Khafre. The statue, startlingly similar to the pharaoh, was carved from black volcanic rock. Mariette found it amid the ruins building he discovered adjacent to the Sphinx that we know today as the Valley Temple. Mariette also found the remnants of a stone-carved pathway connecting Valley Temple to the mortuary temple just beside Khafre's pyramid. In 1925, another French archaeologist, Émile Barrès, upon probing the sand directly in front of the Sphinx, discovered an Old Kingdom building with ground plans that were strikingly similar to the ruins Mariette found almost a century earlier. These clues suggest that Sphinx can be linked to one pharaoh, the pharaoh Khafre. Purpose of the Sphinx. It is unclear what exactly Pharaoh Khafre intended the Sphinx would do for him or his people. The question of what was the purpose of the Sphinx is one that archaeologists and Egyptologists have pondered for a very long time. Many believe that Khafre built the Sphinx strategically in its location to act as a conduit for the journey of the pharaoh and his ancestors into the afterlife. There is no evidence that the Sphinx was ever used as a place of worship, as even the temple was never completed. Pharaoh Khafre was very competitive. In ancient Egypt, rulers erected great temples, pyramids, and statues to immortalize themselves. As we know, Khafre was a powerful king, and he came from the ancestry of powerful kings. Evidence from hieroglyphic text tells us that Khafre's father, Khufu, built the 481-foot-tall Great Pyramid that rests a quarter mile from where the Sphinx is located. This pyramid remains the tallest pyramid in Egypt today. In an attempt to rival his greatness, Khafre constructed his own pyramid, although it was 10 feet shorter than his father's. It is also a quarter mile from the Sphinx. While the pyramid was being constructed, the laborers would carry stones from the site of the Sphinx to the site where they were constructing the pyramid. Khafre's idea was to build a ginormous monument unlike anything else built in Egypt. The Sphinx aligns with other structures around it. Many Egyptians believe the Sphinx represents Pharaoh Khafre as Horus, the royal falcon god, giving offerings with his two paws to his father Khufu, who embodies the sun god Ra, who rises and sets in that temple. From his research, Egyptologist Mark Lehner discovered an incredible astronomic event in the area of the Sphinx. Standing at the east niche during sunset at the March or September equinoxes, you will see that the sun appears to sink into the shoulder of the Sphinx and farther into the south side of the Pyramid of Khafre on the horizon. To help understand it better, Lehner paints a more vivid picture. While the event is occurring, the shadow of the Sphinx and the shadow of the pyramid, symbols of two powerful kings, merge to form a single silhouette. Similarly, if you stand near the Sphinx during the summer solstice, it appears as if the sun is setting midway through the silhouettes of the pyramid of Khafre and Khufu. Who built the Sphinx? In 1990, an American tourist was exploring the desert a mile and a half south of the Sphinx on horseback when she was thrown off her horse. It turns out her horse had stumbled upon a low mud brick wall. When the investigators scoured the area, they discovered an Old Kingdom cemetery with about 600 tombs. Some, with inscriptions recording their names and titles, belong to over-humbled tombs of ordinary laborers surrounding them. This graveyard has been suggested to be the resting place of some laborers who did the back-breaking work of building the Sphinx. Although there have been several suggestions that the Sphinx was built by foreigners, whom the pharaoh had captured as slaves, the fact that the tombs found close to the site had markings of the level and reward each laborer received for their service in building the Sphinx. Lehner believes that the Sphinx might have been built by regular Egyptians in some sort of service to their nation. They might have rotated in and out of work crew under a feudal obligation to their superiors, or they may just be regular people who resumed work every day at the Sphinx. Where did the builders live? A project as huge as the Sphinx would have required at least 2,000 manual builders. Historians believe it would have taken 100 manual laborers at least 3 years to complete it, so it makes sense that the builders would have required a place to stay close to the site. Investigators would later find a lost city close to the site, a settlement more significant than 10 football fields that might have housed the laborers who built the Sphinx. This settlement was arranged uniformly with 4 clusters of 8 long mud brick barracks at its heart. Each structure looked like your regular ancient Egyptian dwelling, complete with pillared porches, sleeping platforms, and kitchens. They were each big enough to accommodate about 50 people sleeping side by side. According to our archaeologist Lehner, the barrack could have accommodated between 1,600 and 2,000 workers. Probably more of the sleeping quarters were on 2 levels. Their diet also goes to further prove that they were not slaves. Lehner's team found remains of animals, especially male cattle under 2 years old, the kind of beef that slaves would never have access to. Secret chamber under the left paw of the Sphinx. When Egyptologist John Anthony West and Robert Schoch had access to the Sphinx for investigation, they discovered something mysterious under its left paw. About 30 to 40 feet beneath the left paw, they found a very large, man-made chamber. Interestingly, the moment the Egyptian authorities discovered what West and Schoch had found, they kicked them out of the Sphinx and stopped their investigation. West and Schoch believed this chamber could hold secrets about humanity that have been buried for centuries. These secrets could tell us how the people of that time lived and reveal things that could give us a better understanding of humanity. The question is, why were Egyptian authorities upset about the discovery? Do they know what is in there? Is it something that could potentially destroy the world? Perhaps we'll never know. When was the Sphinx really carved? Most records agree that the Sphinx was carved in 2500 BC during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre. Author and independent Egyptologist John Anthony West thinks otherwise. He believes the Sphinx was carved 9 to 10,000 years before 2500 BC, before Egypt became a desert, and before even the dawn of man as we know it. From West's research, he discovered that conventional Egyptologists had overlooked an important detail in the body of the Sphinx. The consensus was that the body of the Sphinx had distinct markings of deterioration caused by wind. However, when West showed reputable archaeologists pictures of the body of the Sphinx while concealing the head, they said for a fact that the signs were evidence of decades of constant water erosion. The only problem now is that Egypt is a desert, so if the markings on the Sphinx were caused by water erosion, that then means the Sphinx needs to have been there long before 2500 BC, back to a time before Egypt was a desert, when the Mediterranean Sea covered that area. Which brings us to another problem. There were no civilizations alive during that time that could have constructed it, or was there? Maybe humans existed back then who got wiped out by some natural disaster way before the Egyptians came to Egypt. There are some things, despite science's best efforts to understand, they remain shrouded in mystery. We know that ancient civilization had skills and knowledge we cannot comprehend today, but until we find more clues about their lives, we'll never really know how they achieved many of their miracles. The Symphonic Aqueduct at Delikamar. The Symphonic Aqueduct is located in Adana, Turkey, and was constructed during ancient Roman times. This particular aqueduct is believed to have been built in the 3rd century, and it was used until the 10th century. It's one of the most impressive water supply systems ever built. This aqueduct was also rumored to have been used by the military during World War I and II due to its location on a prominent hilltop. One of its major problems was water pressure, which wasn't that great, making the water lose some of its force before reaching its destination. Today, it's one of the biggest tourist attractions in Turkey and is also listed as a World Heritage Site. The Colosseum. According to historians, the ancient Romans were highly skilled in construction and architecture. It isn't easy to believe that they built various magnificent structures, including the Colosseum, without steel or reinforced concrete. The fact is that today we can't replicate ancient Roman concrete, which is much stronger and more durable than the modern version. Some have suggested they used volcanic ash as an ingredient, while others claim they added some secret ingredient during production, but no one knows for sure what it is. But a theory has been proposed that during the construction of the Colosseum, the Romans used volcanic ash as an explosive material. In 1927, archaeologists found a chunk of volcanic ash in a Roman quarry in Rome. The site is said to have been used by the ancient Romans to excavate building materials such as sandstone and lava. In 1933, some archaeologists discovered another piece of volcanic ash in Pompeii. This time, they believed it was used to manufacture concrete or mortar for its construction. If you take a closer look at the statue, you'll notice that it doesn't have any cracks or fractures on its surface. This is because the ancient Romans used volcanic ash as an ingredient for concrete, which is why it had such a solid and durable property. Archaeologists have found similar findings in other ancient Roman cities, such as Alexandria, which suggests that the technology was widely used in building projects across the empire. But how this was done remains to be an eternal question among scientists. The Maiden Tower in Baku. One of the most curious structures in the world, the Maiden Tower, is a monument to a lost civilization that lived in Azerbaijan millions of years ago. Built from large stone blocks and no mortar, this tower was created without understanding how engineering works. The tower is so tall that it can be seen from as far as 100 miles, and its height has long been disputed. Some argue that it was built to be the highest tower in the world, while others say there is no reason for a tower to be made so tall. After all, no one lives in the tower. There was no purpose for it to be built so tall. The ancient structure is believed to have been built around the 6th century BC. Some argue that it was constructed by a civilization known as the Sassanarians, and that it was used as a watchtower. But historians understand that the tower didn't serve any practical purpose, so they believe it was created for religious purposes. It is primarily because of the many inscriptions on its walls, including Greek characters. The sculptured rocks of Abbey Fore. These strange rock formations are scattered all over the coast of Brittany and Saint Malo, France. Sculptured by centuries of water erosion, these rocks bear strange inscriptions and shapes. The islanders claim that a seafaring civilization left behind bizarre rock shapes in ancient times. The sculptures are said to have been inspired by folklore tales of a pirate family called the Rotanovs, who were fishermen and smugglers of the 15th century. Although most islanders agree about the legendary history of these rocks, many people believe that the truth is far stronger. The Neolithic monuments of Stonehenge. For over 1,000 years, the ancient people who created Stonehenge have been the subject of debate and analysis. Stonehenge is considered a British cultural icon, and tourists and pilgrims have visited it for centuries. The stone circles were constructed on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, England. The whole monument, now ruinous, is aligned towards the sunrise on the summer solstice, but the exact reason for this alignment is a mystery. The Neolithic monuments of Stonehenge are not just the subject of thousands of archaeological studies, but have also been the subject of numerous conspiracies and myths. The most well-known theory is that these structures are a part of a giant astronomical calendar, but scientists have yet to find any correlation between the monument's shape and patterns in the sky. Another popular idea is that Stonehenge was a burial site, but archaeologists have found no proof. There are many theories, but the most logical one is based on the earthquake theory. The stones were arranged in a specific pattern because they were believed to be earthquake prediction devices, and not because they worshipped the sun. Stonehenge was built between 3000 BC and 1500 BC. Church of St. George, Lalibela, Ethiopia. The town of Lalibela, Ethiopia, has earned the nickname of Ethiopia's Jerusalem because it contains more churches than anywhere else on earth. Lalibela is also unique because each of these churches was carved out of solid rock. The church structure is similar to the Church of St. George in Lalibela, which is considered a national treasure and has been the subject of many pilgrimages for centuries. How the people of Lalibela managed to create these rock churches is a complete mystery. The Church of St. George is famous for its unique architecture, incorporating various elements, including Asian, European, and Coptic styles. Its church facade is made of beautifully carved and painted marble, while the church's interior features elaborately decorated wooden columns. The church contains many examples of Christian iconography, and it is believed that the same king donated all the churches in Lalibela. King Lalibela built the town's churches during the 12th century. The Moai statues of Easter Island. The ancient civilization that lived on the most isolated island in the world, Easter Island, built an entire culture on top of an extinct volcano. The Moai statues are thought to be manifestations of their gods, and the locals believe that to live a prosperous life, the figures must be appeased by building more and more statues. Also called the Easter Island heads, the Moai statues are characterized by their large bodies and headdresses constructed from volcanic rock. Easter Islanders are believed to have been the first settlers in the Pacific, taking this wayfinding skill with them on their voyages. These voyages took them as far as Hawaii and even Chile, Polynesia, but unfortunately for Easter Island, when Europeans first discovered it in 1722, it was completely uninhabited. Stone spheres of Costa Rica. You can find hundreds of largely and perfectly round stone spheres deep in the jungles of Costa Rica. Some of these rocks are as big as cars, while others weigh over 20 tons, and they were all carried to this location by humans using nothing but their bare hands. They were sculptured by hammering boulders into a simple spherical shape using denser rocks and were then finished by polishing the stone surface using sand, shells, and coral. No one is sure what the purpose of these stone spheres was or who created them, but they may represent some calendar or social status. Napa Huaca in Peru. The Napa Huaca tribe in the Peruvian Amazon basin has a long tradition of stonework, but their most famous work of art are their megalithic sculptures. The tribal elders claim that they were taught to build these statues by aliens, who also gave them the technology and knowledge they still use today. The purpose of the blue stone sculpture is unclear, but the tribe does claim that it was designed as an antenna for communicating with aliens. The tribal elders say that they have been in regular contact with aliens since the time of their ancestors and believe that if their culture is destroyed, the knowledge of their ancestors will be lost forever. A false door is carved in the rear of the sculpture to look like a portal to the alien world. Temple of the Crystal Skulls. Once home to the powerful pre-Columbian civilization, the Temple of the Crystal Skulls is a temple about 1,200 years old. The inside of the building contains many artifacts, including over 10,000 skulls carved from crystal, which turn out to be quartz. The Mayan culture that inhabited this area had a tradition of using quartz to make their most important items, including jewelry and weapons. It's also possible that they used their skulls in their traditional bloodletting rituals or as a dedication offering to their gods. In the 1940s, explorer Cyrus Teed was the first person to discover the temple. He found it during a mission to locate remnants of an ancient civilization that he had hoped would help him prove that Atlantis existed. Unfortunately for Teed, his expedition failed to find any evidence of Atlantis. He died in 1952 under mysterious circumstances where only one survivor claimed he had seen a UFO and heard voices from it. The Coso Artifact. The small island of Coso lies in the middle of the lake Titicaca and is located between Bolivia and Peru. Many ancient ruins are located in the region, including an ancient fortress called Huna, a number of sacred lakes, and underground tunnels. In 1961, Virginia Maxey and Wallace Lane wandered close to the Coso Mountains and discovered the Coso Artifact, which consists of a 1920 spark plug inside an iron oxide shell that is 500,000 years old. What's even more interesting is that the shell is a concretion, a type of rock that forms when mineral-rich water drips from the ceiling of a cave and then hardens. This discovery was one of the first to help scientists understand how concretions were created, and the artifact remains a mystery today. The Baghdad Battery. The Baghdad Battery is a clay pot with a copper cylinder that contains an iron rod. It is believed that the device was used by the Greeks and Romans to store electricity in India and Iraq. There are many stories about this battery, but it's unknown who invented it. In 1980, the British scientist Dick Russell discovered that when this battery was placed in a magnetic field, it caused the iron rod inside to glow. This discovery has put scientists on an exciting path to understanding how this ancient technology worked. This ancient technology was also helpful in building the Baghdad Railway, a 3,000-kilometer railway built to connect the Mesopotamian city of Basra to Mosul in Iraq. It was the first railway built and operated by the British Empire. The railway went over 200 miles and connected the two cities using a track gauge of 9.5 inches. The British ultimately destroyed the railway in World War I, but it has been said that the railway bed formed a straight line for 70 miles and that the British used this line as an artillery target practice. Sacsayhuaman. Sacsayhuaman is a massive walled complex in Cusco, Peru, and although the Incas built it, no one knows its purpose. It is a citadel on the northern outskirts of the city of Cusco. It is composed of 3 areas: the Temple of the Sun, the Temple of the Moon, and the Palace of the Pakuchek. Above, it looks like a trapezoid with 2 walls that join at right angles. The walls are over 100 feet tall and up to 60 feet thick. The structure was built using soil known as yatana, composed of millions of stone blocks. It is hard to believe that no one has discovered what this place was used for, since it's one of Cusco's most significant and mysterious constructions, but nothing has been learned about it. The only clue is that it was used for religious ceremonies. Therefore, one could assume it's a sanctuary, church, or temple. The local people believe that the temple was used to worship the sun and the moon, which makes sense since it's near the midday sun. No one knows what would have been within the Temple of Pachakuchek, but some have suggested that he may have stayed there. In any case, this place remains a mystery to this day. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon were one of the most famous ancient gardens in history. They were built by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II, and it is believed that they existed from 600 to 300 BC, although they might have been destroyed in an earthquake. The gardens were huge, with a circumference of 230 feet, and the gardens were designed to mimic a desert. They may have been built to trick one of Nebuchadnezzar's enemies into believing that he had defeated them. The gardens were said to be on top of the city walls in eastern Babylon, and they were made out of stone and bricks. These gardens were said to be so beautiful that they rivaled even the Gardens of Eden, but since no description of them has ever been found, it's tough to say whether this is true. The Hanging Gardens were situated on what is now called the Royal Hill in Baghdad. They were built between 535 and 497 BC, but it is unknown if they fell victim to an earthquake or if they ever even existed. A Babylonian document about the Hanging Gardens is in existence and describes the gardens, but the document is an official record, not history. Because of this, there are many different interpretations of what the gardens were used for. Some believe they were used to grow produce, while others think they were used as a defensive fortification in which an army could hide during a siege. Wall of the Sun and Wall of the Moon. The remains of the Wall of the Sun are located in northern Chile and are part of the ancient Inca road that ran from Cusco up to Puna. This road was built around 1000 AD and comprises approximately 2,600 miles of paving stones. The rocks used in making this road are so well preserved that they could be used to pave roads today. In 1738, a British army set out on an expedition to find the rumored fabled riches of the Incas, and they discovered this ancient road. They also found many pyramids with signs of the Quichua language, indicating that they were built for worship. This discovery was so important to the ancient Peruvian people that it was used as a basis for Emperor Pedro I to invade Spanish aided by British ships. The Inca built the road using silver as a support layer and covered the stones in vegetation and mud. This created a solid mortar, allowing them to create bridges between natural land formations, making them completely invisible from aerial view. To date, it is hard to explain how the ancient Incas were able to combine the stones and make them fit so perfectly together. When no metal tools were available and the Incas did not know how to build a proper arch, it's hard to believe they could make something like this road. The Great Pyramid of Giza. The Great Pyramid of Giza was the tallest building in the world for over 3,000 years, and the ancient Egyptians built it around 4,500 years ago. It consists of over 2.7 million blocks of stone, and it's believed that it was built to serve as the tomb of Pharaoh Khufu. It is also thought that this structure was modeled after 3 pyramid temples built in Egypt at the time and are now destroyed. It's also believed that the construction of this pyramid took 20 years to complete, and despite numerous attempts, no one has ever been able to find out how they could do it so quickly without modern tools. It is said that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built by a civilization that was not very advanced, so this is something that we have yet to understand. Some of the most exciting discoveries about this pyramid are: first, there are no tunnels or shafts connecting it with the outside world. Also, there is no evidence of any ventilation opening, and it is believed that air would have been a problem in such a place where millions of people worked and lived. Another exciting thing is that it is thought that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built on a gigantic scale, using only the techniques and knowledge at their disposal. There is no way that they could have achieved this without going beyond the limits of their abilities, so who were these people to be able to do this? Gopakal Rock Cut Jain Statue in India. The Gopakal Rock Cut Jain Statue is located in Madhya Pradesh, India, and was carved about 1,000 years ago. The statue is made of sandstone and depicts a Jain deity known as Makaraveli, the daughter of God. The sculpture was built using a wooden pedestal, which has since been removed but is still very impressive in size. Gopakal Rock Cut Jain Statue was carved and constructed in the Brahmi style of architecture, which was also one of the most basic styles of architecture in ancient India. The statue is so well made that it often resembles a man but sometimes looks like a woman, and the people of India call this deity Makaraveli or Tara Devi. Since this statue was carved out of sandstone and not wood, it is very strong but delicate because it might break if someone bumps into it. Although many people have tried to remove this sculpture from the ground to preserve it, they haven't had much luck. The Hanging Monastery. The Hanging Monastery is located near Kabul, Afghanistan, and was built during the 5th century. this monastery has remained intact despite numerous wars, earthquakes, and invasions. It's believed this place was once home to around 100 monks, but it was abandoned at some point during the 11th century. It is called the Hanging Monastery because it is located on the side of a cliff face in a remote part of Afghanistan. The monastery's site is about 200 feet above a river canyon, and there is only one way up or down. It is also said that the monks who inhabited this space were so dedicated to their religion that they would never look at a woman or even see their shadow. During the 14th century, this site was occupied by Hassan Jarish and his followers, who built a new monastery on top of the old one. Later, during the 17th century, this monastery was occupied by the Afridi tribe members fighting their way across Central Asia. The Pyramid of Djoser. The Pyramid of Djoser is located in Saqqara, Egypt, and is considered one of the oldest stone structures on Earth. It was built around 2,700 years ago during the 27th century BC, during the reign of King Djoser. This pyramid was constructed using limestone blocks, while the Pharaoh's Sphinx, located nearby, was built using granite. This structure is also part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Ankh and Cobra that are carved into the capstone of this pyramid are present as a religious symbol and a symbol of resurrection. The interior of this pyramid was then filled with rubble and stones so that the king would have a place to be buried after he died. Although the body of King Djoser was never found, it is believed that the sarcophagus in this pyramid contains his remains. The Grotto of St. Peter is also a popular place for Catholics to perform an act of piety known as scapulars. Scapulars are small discs attached to chains worn around the neck and need to be obtained from the church for the person to perform this act of piety. These scapulars take the form of a body when its head is pointing downwards, and it is believed that St. Peter is looking towards heaven. The Phoenician Ship of Salt. The Phoenicians were a Semitic people who lived in the Middle East that were known for their trade with other countries, including Rome, Egypt, and Greece. The Phoenician Ship of Salt is located in Eilat, Israel, and is currently on display at the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. This ship was used in the ancient city that is known as Eilat. It's made out of salt rocks and is approximately 45 feet long. The ship was built another 3,000 years ago and was constructed by the Phoenicians, meaning it's one of the oldest artificial objects ever discovered on Earth. It's believed that this ship is also a burial site for some of the Phoenician people, and it was found during an excavation in 1988. The Phoenician Ship of Salt was discovered in 1988 along with 100 other Phoenician artifacts found at this site. The ship is so old that it's believed that the Phoenicians must have been able to get salt from another part of the world because they didn't have any way to make enough salt themselves. Many other places are being added and updated every year, but these were a few of the top choices for ancient artificial structures. It's important to remember that it wasn't always easy to do what they did back then, and many people had to work hard and dedicate their lives to building these structures. The world has come so far since those times, and we've advanced in technology enough that we could probably create some of these things today if given the chance. There's nothing to say that we can't, except that back then, people didn't know how, and that was part of their culture.
The mysterious figures of the Hongshan culture. The mysterious Hongshan culture disappeared from the surface of the earth thousands of years ago. However, the members of this culture left behind a multitude of mysteries that archaeologists still come across today without having explanations as to what they mean. These abstract jade figurines are definitely one of them. If you take a look at them, you immediately shudder, as the depicted beings really don't look like humans at all. To make matters worse, these figures were found in a pyramid-like structure in Mongolia. People still believe that pyramids could only be built with the help of aliens a long time ago. And what exactly do the jade figures remind you of? Did they end up being some kind of tribute to commemorate the alien helpers? Were they worshipped as gods or angels? One thing is at least clear. Figures of this form do not come about by chance because an old Asian sculptor's imagination ran away with him. They are far too detailed for that. The first archaeological proof of the existence of Jesus of Nazareth. This ossuary is said to be the first archaeological proof of the existence of Jesus of Nazareth. Who was Jesus? Did he really exist? If so, was he an ordinary preacher or the biblical Son of God? Archaeologists are grateful for every find that provides clarification in any direction or allows other important insights. When the ossuary was found in 2002, it was considered proof of Jesus' existence. Since then, scientific experts have been investigating whether it's a forgery. In 2013, the authenticity of the object was established by a court. Nevertheless, it has been quiet about the ossuary since then, and where it's currently located is not really known. Is someone trying to cover something up here? Why is the world not allowed to know more about the ossarium? We can only guess what really happened. The mysterious witch markings. At the beginning, we talked about witches only being in movies. Once the credits roll, you're back in witch-free reality. Yet the topic of the existence of witches has haunted us since the Middle Ages, and to this day it continues to boil up. We may not be talking about witches in the cinematic sense with warts, long noses, and flying brooms, but there seems to be something to the black magic. Finds like the creepy, disturbing witch markings in a limestone cave in Nottinghamshire underline this area. Their existence has been known for some time, but only now have researchers taken a closer look at them. Just look at the detailed, carved marks and images for yourself. Such drawings used to be found in churches and monasteries, but not usually in limestone caves. People wanted to use them to keep evil away, but what exactly was to be kept away? What evil threats came over the land? The giants from Tula. Ancient towns or villages already exude an impressive ambience in themselves, but it becomes even more mysterious when artifacts, ruins, statues, or columns are found that are difficult to explain. On a platform in the Mexican city of Tula, for example, you will find these menacing statues in the form of 4 colossal warriors towering over everything. They date from the time of the Toltec civilization and look as if they were built to keep something threatening away from the people. Their Mesoamerican warrior attire emphasizes their readiness for battle, and the general fearsome design of the figures still makes us shudder today. And as with so many artifacts of days gone by, archaeologists can hardly understand how humans could have delivered such detailed work so long ago to create something so incredible. The mysterious disc. This disc, which is probably a large table, remains a mystery to this day. The fact that almost all tables found from past times so far have been rectangular in shape suggests that the round object is something else. Scientists believe they know from the detailed hieroglyphics that it is a disc for presenting gifts or offerings to a high official called Defji. The characters translate to mean honored by the great god, unique friend, the Great One. However, the alabaster disc could also have served other purposes. The 2 untypical openings, which are supposed to be for liquids, are also puzzling. In former times, however, these were presented in goblets. It remains unclear exactly what purpose the table-like disc served. The Aztecs, Inca, and Maya figures. When it comes to the Aztec, Inca, and Maya peoples, numerous mysteries entwine around their cultures and ways of life. A few glances of the artworks of the peoples are enough, and you will quickly recognize references to extraterrestrial life forms. These rumors have been around for a long time. Did the peoples of old have contact with aliens? With figures like these, it doesn't take much imagination to have such thoughts. You can see a figure that actually looks exactly like the typical alien according to our imagination. Human body, big eyes and heads, and long limbs. On many stones or works of art of the peoples, beings of this kind can be seen making contact with humans. It's actually hard to believe that the people of that time thought up such scenarios for no reason, or had fun transmitting false messages to future generations. The Kaimanawa Wall. This mysterious wall in New Zealand is still a mystery today. Who created it? Is it a natural or man-made structure? And if the wall was built by humans, who exactly was at work here, and by what means could stones be moved and worked in such a way? The blocks fit perfectly into each other due to their workmanship. Such a construction would almost only be possible with the machines today. Historians assume that the wall was built by the Waitaha, an indigenous people of New Zealand, but other scientists assume that it must have been a previously unknown civilization. And it must be emphasized again, no one can understand how exactly this wall could have been built. Archaeologists have not been able to solve this mystery to this day. The lost chess piece. Doesn't this chess piece look incredibly mysterious, creepy, and ancient? But above all, it is one thing: incredibly valuable. It belongs to a Scottish family and was once bought by the grandfather for $6 from the assortment of an antique dealer. Since then, the ivory figurine has been in the family's possession and was to be thrown away a few times, but they could not really part with the piece. What no one knew, researchers have been searching for decades for the figurine, which belongs to a rare chess set created around the year 1200. Today, the piece is worth $1.2 million, so every now and then it's worth visiting a veteran antique dealer to see what bargains can be had there. The Minaret of Jam. The Minaret of Jam in Afghanistan is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and an archaeological treasure of the greatest value. However, flooding has threatened the minaret for centuries. From time immemorial, prayers were proclaimed at this elevated site and spoken to the gods as well as to the people. Archaeologists have been studying the minaret for decades, but increasing rainfall and mud deposits now make research work almost impossible. Yet there is still so much to explore and discover. What is particularly scary about this? To think how much nature can throw a spanner in the works when it comes to uncovering ancient secrets. The mythical Benbenstein. This Benben stone is one of the mysterious objects of Egyptian mythology. It cannot be determined exactly where it came from. It may be a former spire of a pyramid or part of a mystical shrine of bygone days. In addition, there are researchers whose theory is that the stone showed either extraterrestrial or other beings the way to a safe landing. This is not the first time in this list that strange artifacts and similar objects have been linked to extraterrestrial visitors or helpers. Whether there is anything to it, we cannot say, but the frequency is striking. Benben stones, like many other entries in this list, remain a great mystery to mankind to this day. Our opinion is clear for now. It's amazing what unfathomable mysteries and exciting stories this planet still offers us today. Inexplicable things and incomprehensible stories alternate and show that we may think we always have all the answers, but in the end we are still fishing in the mud in many respects. At times, it seems as if our ancestors had a much better grasp of things: contacts with aliens, high-quality construction, artful artifacts and cave carvings. There is nothing left for us to do but be impressed and puzzle over the ultimate significance of many of the entries on this list. What is your opinion? Have you ever been involved with archaeological finds? Have you come across an archaeological site yourself on holiday? Do you have the answer to the many mysterious facts that this list reveals? Leave us a comment. We're curious and would love to puzzle over them with you.